go about building up our sales strategy for various kind of products or different go-to-market approaches, we typically take a very data-driven approach to sales strategy, and data ultimately helps us align on the right strategy. Some of the key data points that we like to look at to build up our strategy start with the basics. We'll start with things like sales cycle length, our expected ASP, the average sales price for the product. But then we go beyond those things. We'll get into partner involvement. How much will a partner want to sell this product? And we'll typically look at the expected, or even if we have data on it, the actual activities per dollar of MRR, monthly recurring revenue. And that last one is kind of key, because what we want to do is keep an eye on how much time is the rep spending and the dollar return on that time. And that really is more of a metric that the rep thinks about. They don't do the calculation on it, but they think about how do they optimize for their time. So we'll look at all of those metrics and try to then coordinate an approach, a go-to-market approach that optimizes either for having the rep take the product to market, or maybe having a partner be highly involved. The partners are going to get involved if they have services that they can sell. And if you have a partner-driven model, clearly services sit around the product often. Or is it a marketing / product-driven motion where we might have a low sales price, a short sales cycle, and therefore we don't want to necessarily have the reps involved, but we want to have product. So we typically look at it through one of those lenses, but the data is the key factor there for us. So this is a framework we've been really honing and refining, I'd say, even this year. And we've tried to simplify it down to this 2x2 concept. And actually, why don't I share? I took a quick drawing of this earlier. Let me see if I can share my screen. Yeah, so here's a view of this framework. You can see my beautiful handwriting. The way I think about the framework is activities or complexity of the sale. And the reason I put sales activities here is it's really how complex is it for the sales rep to sell. Not necessarily how complex is the product, but how complex is it for the sales rep to sell. So we'll look at that on a high-low basis. And then we'll look at the average sales price, also kind of on a low-high basis. So once I have an understanding of that level of complexity and the average sales price, I can place my go-to-market strategy into one of these 4 quadrants. If I were to place my go-to-market strategy here, let's say in this bottom left quadrant, then what that means is it's going to be low ASP, low level of complexity to sell. I don't really want to have a sales rep focus there. That's going to be a product-driven motion with the help of marketing. Bottom left is not really where we want our reps to sit. The reps are going to sit over here in one of these 2 quadrants on the right-hand side, and where we see that higher ASP motion. So for us, we have products that do sit across both or any one of these quadrants in the 2x2. But again, our reps are going to always sit over here on the right-hand side. And that's because they're not going to want to really spend their time on a lower ASP type product. So the reps love the bottom left. They love to sit down here, but it's very hard to find a product that has high ASP and low complexity. So usually we're going to find our reps that are kind of sitting up here in the upper right. This quadrant on the left-hand side is a really tricky quadrant. And this quadrant, I'm going to give it a little orange circle here. This is a quadrant, I actually call it, I've dubbed it the wasteland. So the orange quadrant is the wasteland. And the reason I call it the wasteland is it's really hard to sell products in the wasteland. You can get some that can grow up there, but to see a product flourish, you have to be very focused on it. And usually it's going to be more of a partner-driven motion that'll help that product flourish. This is a higher complexity, higher sales motion, which usually can't be done through just a e-commerce type buying experience. Usually you need some level of help to buy the product. But again, being the low ASP, reps try to avoid this area, so they're not spending their time here. The reason a partner can sell in here is a partner often will have services attached. So this isn't the only area partners live, but this is the only way I'd say to go to market in the wasteland is the partner needs to have those services available, and then they can sell their services on top of the product that's being sold. So this is how I think about it. It's kind of a very simple 2x2. We'll plug a product into one of these 4 quadrants, and then we'll make a decision on how we want to go to market through partner, through rep, maybe even specialist involvement. Specialists kind of sit way up here in the upper left. We call that our kind of specialists that help reps. Specialist is an overlay role that might help a rep because it's highly complex, but also high ASP. The come back here. So the other question I ask at the end of that, after I peg something into one of the quadrants, is we'll say, who's the buyer? And it's just a really simple question, but is that buyer someone who we're already typically talking to, who I think my sales reps can handle, and I've already categorized the handful of buyers that I want my sales reps to be able to talk to? Or is it a newer buyer? When I come out with a new product, this is the question I always have to ask, is it a new buyer? Because if I'm involving a new buyer, then I have to decide, do I want my sales reps capable of talking to that buyer, or do I want an overlay rep to help me? And that's the key decision when I need the overlay, is if I have that new buyer involved. For example, we have a product, our CMS hub, which is a little bit more complex, but you have a more of a technical buyer involved. We need a specialist to help out with that technical conversation. So that's why the who is the buyer is a really key component of the go-to-market strategy. So it makes planning for 2021 so much more challenging. I'm sure everyone's been thinking a lot about this, built up plans at this point for 2021, but kind of nervous, as am I, about how's that all going to play out. So the way that we've been thinking a lot about 2021 is build a plan with a backup plan in place. And we call this our pre-post-mortem. This is how we get ourselves there. So we'll do a pre-post-mortem on all of our plays that we're running going into 2021. And the pre-post-mortem is essentially saying, what happens? What do we do when things go wrong? So we're getting ourselves ready for things to go wrong, because they're going to go a little awry or wrong, or just go in a different direction, is the way we're anticipating things for 2021. So we shall see, but being ready is the key step. So when you build your plan in years past, we built the plan, and we just assume, the year will kind of carry forward and grow, and go in a similar way. And 2021 is going to be different. It's hard to say. It could accelerate. It could go in an opposite direction. It's hard to say. So that's why the pre-post-mortem concept is critical. So we've got a bunch of plays. We're growing fast as a business. And as we look at those key plays we're leading into, we've looked at them. We've identified just like 3, maybe 4 areas where a play could go awry. And we don't need to boil the ocean and find all the problems. We're just trying to keep it to like 3 or 4 core areas where something can go wrong, and then say, what are we going to do if that goes wrong? A key element of that is, how long are we going to wait? So if something begins to go wrong, do you wait a week? Do you wait a month? Do you wait 3 months? Do you wait 6 months? So we've aligned on a time frame that we feel comfortable to say, we need to let it play out a little more, but here's our time frame. 3 months is kind of a rough time frame that we usually use for that as a guideline. After things are going wrong for about 3 months in a row, you get a trend. I always call 3 months the trend. I tell my sales leaders that too. Once you've done something for 3 months, that's going to be good or bad, but it's a trend. So that's where we usually begin to think about making a change or an adjustment. So that's, let's say, the core of how we've done the planning this year is it takes a little bit more extra time. You can do it even in Q1 to get ready. Even though the plan's already in place, it's knowing what are you going to do when things go a little awry or a little different than what you planned on. The other recommendation I would have on this is do a mid-year check-in. So we've built our plan with our messaging going out to the sales floor that we are going to do a check-in, and that check-in is aligned to our quota message. We're rolling out quotas in the front half of the year, and we're talking about a mid-year quota change that's built into the plan, but we're giving a range on that quota. We're not locking ourselves into a quota number mid-year. So that's sort of flexibility, giving ourselves a range. People are understanding that we're in a business environment today that's a little bit unpredictable. With that, we're giving ourselves some flexibility to shift in different directions mid-year. And that's another thing that we're doing.